time. So I throw up my head, praise you again and again. All that I have is a hallelujah. And I know it's not.
Hey, what's up, guys? Thanks for joining me on a Monday night. We have not had a stream for a little while. The Sunday before last, I was actually at the University of Michigan for a Charlie Kirk memorial event. And then last night, frankly, I just wasn't really feeling very well. And of course, there was also the 8+ hour Charlie Kirk event, the official one that was at this, I don't even know which stadium it was, but this gigantic stadium, which we just saw some footage from, which had President Trump himself, and of course half his administration was there, and Erica Kirk was phenomenal. And there's a lot to talk about. I think really other world events will have to be put on hold for a little bit because we got to talk about this event, which frankly, this is I think a life-changing moment here as far as how we look at the world and how I know it's affected me that way, which I guess we'll talk about. Maybe I'll get to the point where I get to that. But I think there's a lot. We should probably at least some structure tonight and kind of talk about a number of things. But I think first and foremost, the place to start is going to have to be with talking about Charlie Kirk himself, and that this wasn't just some conservative activist or even some conservative leader or a MAGA leader or anything like that. I think to call Charlie Kirk any of those things is to do him a disservice, because Charlie Kirk was, to even call him the most effective conservative organizer, Republican organizer, if you want, anything like that is just not enough. I mean, this is a guy who at 31 years old had built like the largest youth movement in America, and in a way that was not exclusively political. And by the way, not even just in America. I mean, the Charlie Kirk memorials weren't even just in the United States. They were all over the world. This was somebody who was had an impact globally, and of course the assassination also has had global ramifications. I guess I should just get to that point too. So I'll just say this flat out: this is a war. We are in a war between good and evil in this world, and there is no question. There's no neutrality in this. You're on one side or the other, and it has been for me, and I think for probably everybody, extremely disheartening to see just how much evil there is in the world. And unfortunately, there is, by the way, even bad news just came out today. Well, actually, I'm going to get to the Jimmy Kimmel stuff, and I'll get to that later in the show, I think. I've got a lot of notes. I've got a lot of notes for things that this wouldn't be a complete rambling episode, but let me try to at least cleave to that a little bit, although I probably... It's going to... I mean, this is a show I've been working on for the past week and a half, and even still, I can't quite put organization to it. So... yeah, Charlie Kirk was a martyr for free speech. He was a martyr of a generation, really. I mean, you would have to go back to 1968 to Martin Luther King and Robert F. Kennedy to find any kind of analogous example. And I think actually RFK Jr. put it well when he said that. When he said this was the second time that the voice of a generation was silenced by an assassin's bullet. And we have to in fact, even just the symbolism of the whole thing, the fact that Charlie Kirk was murdered as he was engaging in free speech, as he was engaging in the exercise of defending free speech on a college campus, and even the fact that he was shot in the throat, that he was literally silenced um, by this. Well, let's just get to this point too. Charlie Kirk was killed by a left-wing terrorist, and there's been a fair number of attempts from many different people on the internet to shift blame. I mean, the most egregious and disgusting and despicable, of course, is the left, and claiming that, and Jimmy Kimmel in particular, but the left in general, and claiming that Charlie Kirk's assassin was anything other than a radical leftist terrorist. But there has also been a fair number of cautiously speculative claims that there might be more to it than this, and it might be a foreign actor. This might be a conspiracy. That stuff's always going to happen. But and there's basically two major threads that this has taken on the internet. One being the suggestion that perhaps Israel is behind it, and the other being Ukraine. Which let's get straight to the point here. There is, as of now, not a single shred of evidence of either of those things. Period. Now, it is true that Israel and Ukraine both probably are happy that Charlie Kirk's dead, because he was opposed to the American support of both of those countries, certainly Ukraine. And we can look maybe at Israel at some point, but just because a foreign state actor might want an American killed absolutely does not automatically mean that they did it. And in the first couple of days, I was thinking about how to talk about this, and this is before the killer was apprehended. And I was thinking, the overwhelmingly likely possibility is that this is exactly what it appears to have been, which is that a radicalized left-wing college student murdered Charlie Kirk. But depending on how long it was going to take before he was apprehended, then the odds might have gone down. But then finally, after 2 full days, they did finally catch the guy. And there's been to be fair, there's been some questions about some things in the story that don't quite make sense, like the changing of the clothes and the carrying of this firearm, which is, a World War II era rifle that is not easily hidden and not easily taken apart. But even still, I think, and again, I don't know if I want to get into all this stuff. Maybe at some point we can talk about it. If people in the chat want to talk about it, we can. But nothing that rises to the level of certainly any kind of foreign actor involved in this. Like, okay, Ukraine, if Ukraine wants to kill an American they don't like, well, they'll go after someone like Gonzalo Lira, who was an American in Ukraine, who they could kidnap with impunity and murder in a prison because the Biden State Department didn't care, and Marco Rubio State Department still doesn't care, but the notion of assassinating Charlie Kirk, just too far-fetched. And all of the evidence that's come out has made it abundantly clear. Now, one thing that has come out also, too, is we were always right to say that we don't need the FBI, because, my God, what a freaking embarrassment Kash Patel has been. This has just been an absolute disgrace. And ultimately, the FBI didn't even catch the guy. He was turned in by his parents. How pathetic. But we should also say to some of the theories about how this was allowed to happen. Look, he didn't have Secret Service protection, folks. I mean, he had a security. He had security people, sure, but there's only so much that private security can do. So, anyway, I think one of the saddest things about the assassination of any individual is that they instantly lose the ability to speak for themselves, and they can no longer say what they want and what they want people to think. And one of the things that's now a big question is how to handle well, first of all, there's all these free speech issues, and we can talk about that. We should talk about this actually in some depth, because of course, well, first off, Charlie Kirk, and let's be straight about this. Charlie Kirk was an advocate for free speech, and that does not mean he was an advocate only for the speech that he supports, which is unfortunately what a lot of people on both sides are really all about. And frankly, it's been extremely disappointing to have seen so many so-called libertarians who didn't know a thing about Charlie Kirk attacking his political views or his sincerity about this. Because what Charlie Kirk firmly believed in and what he exercised was dialogue and debate in the purest and truest American sense, that he would go to college campuses and invite the other side to debate him. And I think most importantly, Charlie was always someone that wanted to be he was not the caricature. He was not the like, in fact, the idea, I guess, of doing this stuff, Steven Crowder, maybe he wants credit now because he kind of started that whole prove me wrong thing. But Charlie Kirk was not the Steven Crowder type or the Matt Walsh type. He would even help the leftist college students who would be nervous when they were trying to debate him. And because, he'd done this a million times, so he wasn't nervous, but they often were, because public speaking is tough. And he would actually try to help them a bit, and not to say he would try to put words in their mouth, but he'd be like, well, I think what you really want to say is, and like he would work with them. He'd try to put them at ease, because he genuinely wanted to have a genuine discussion and a dialogue. And he was just so dang good at doing that. That's why he, of all people, was targeted. I mean, you could imagine, I suppose, that this could have happened to any conservative on campus, but Charlie was not any conservative. He was the best among us. And the libel and slander that have gone on everywhere in the major media and among the left in its totality is just absolutely shocking. There was a study by Stanford University just very recently, but it wasn't the first study ever to ever look at this, that showed that 34% of American college students advocate violence against people whose opinions they don't like. That makes me ashamed to be an American. That should make every single person ashamed of the American college system. And I actually, when I spoke at, when we had this memorial at U of M, and it was put on by Turning Point's U of M chapter. So I didn't want to make it, I really don't want to speak, period, because there'd already been a few oldsters speaking, and it was really, this was the U of M students event. So I really kind of like laid back and let all of them get a chance to speak before I took a turn. And by the time I finally got in line to speak, they're like, you got 1 minute. I was like, okay. So I kept it very short. But one thing that happened was they had this event at the U of M Diag, and the American flag was at full mast when it had been ordered by President Trump to be at half mast through sunset of that night. You knew it had been at full mast the entire time. So I made a point about that, how disgusting, disgraceful that is. And the reality that we can't escape is that the left wants us dead. All of us. And it doesn't matter what you say. It doesn't matter who you are. Patty says, ordered by Whitmer too. Patty, you're welcome to come on the show. Please join me. Please join me if you can. Open contempt. We should be calling our legislators. They are discussing the budget right now. They should be defunding U of M. They should be penalizing them at the very least. They give U of M like $300 million a year. Penalize them for $3 million. Take away 3 days of their funding, at least. But absolutely, this was, I mean, like all political assassinations, this was an act of terrorism. And the target was not just Charlie, it was all of us, to intimidate us into silence. And we should be speaking out like never before. Like never before. D asks, what do you think was meant when Cash Patel said, I'll meet you in Valhalla, Charlie? That's called cape shit. That's stupid memeing on pop culture themes. What was the other thing he said? He said I'll see you in Valhalla, and and I've got the watch, which is a Game of Thrones reference. It's just embarrassing, unprofessional conduct by Cash Patel. I mean, the least of it. The worst part is the failure to solve the case, but yeah, Cash Patel, what a disgrace he is. And of course, in the meantime, between now and when this incident happened, he went on some interview someplace and again says Epstein had no clients. Jeffrey Epstein had no clients, folks. Disgusting. But anyway, never mind about that. So anyway, a lot of people have been putting words in Charlie Kirk's mouth. The worst offender being Benjamin Netanyahu, of course, going on all the right-wing American news channels and saying what an amazing supporter of Israel Charlie Kirk was. What a self-serving pile of garbage. And not true at all, by the way. In fact, as Tucker Carlson was pointing out, Charlie was actually very concerned about what was going on in Gaza and the things Israel was doing, and had been put under very intense pressure. In fact, I think I got a clip of that. Let me see. Yeah, here, let me play this clip real quick. Here we go.
He was one of the only people, I mean, truly one of the only people to go to the president whom he loved. He loved Donald Trump, like personally as well. And I think the president really loved him in a real way. But he was one of the only people to go to the Oval Office and say, sir, I totally understand and think Iran's really bad, but a war with Iran is not, is something that could really hurt our country. I mean, boy, that was an unpopular position. He didn't need to express it. Oh, of course. And he did it again. He didn't have some weird agenda. He wasn't mad at anybody. He was for his country, and he was for doing the right and wise and difficult thing. And he said that. He went to the Oval Office to say that. He took massive abuse from his own donors, which is also something that you don't see people. And he loved his donors. It wasn't a hostile thing, but they had a different view. A lot of them, not all, but a lot. And they expressed it to him in a very intense way. I know because he showed me. And he said, look, I understand your perspective. This is my perspective. And we're going to do what we think is the right thing, the wise thing.
In that way, too, he was the voice of young people. I mean, there are no young people in the country anymore supporting this war and wanting Israel to continue its bombing campaign. That's just the truth. Look at the polls. And he was in touch with them. And even where his own opinion may have differed from their opinion, he felt like he owed it to them to bring their message to the sitting president of the United States. I mean, it was, that's what's been snuffed out.
Well, as he has been, unfortunately.
Yeah, that was one clip. I've seen several. That was one of them. But there was another one where I think Tucker even said that, that these donors were like tormenting Charlie right up until the end, badgering him about supporting Israel. But anyway, what can you do? I saw this comment. James O'Keefe called Charlie Kirk a modern day William F. Buckley meets Rush Limbaugh. He didn't mean that as an insult. So, but Yeah, but Charlie Kirk was a much greater man than either of those two were. And I don't dislike Rush Limbaugh, but he was only at the end of the day a talk show host, not an organizer. And there's a big distinction between those two things. Charlie Kirk had a show. I've got a show, whatever. Mine's nothing compared to his. But that's not what Rescue Michigan Coalition has ever been. It's about legislation. It's about real world action. And Turning Point was about real world action, not just news and commentary. That's not what influences politics. What influences politics is what happens in the real world. And Charlie Kirk did get that. So let me just say this, and this is, I don't know if this is a good segue or not. It probably isn't, but I'll just say it because it's on my mind at the moment. Thank God Erica Kirk is in charge of Turning Point from here out. And that was probably no sure thing. I don't know the internals of how Turning Point USA works, but I do remember when Phyllis Schlafly passed away, it was a big question. What was going to happen to Eagle Forum? That was the organization that Phyllis founded. And Phyllis Schlafly, she died of old age. I mean, she was like in her late 90s, I think. But the Eagle Forum in its day was, I mean, Phyllis was the matriarch of the conservative movement, and the Eagle Forum was like one of the most influential. It was the most influential Republican women's organization. Period. End of story. And near the end, Phyllis became a Trump supporter, which in 2015 was a controversial position, and a lot of the old guard in the Eagles were not happy about that. You remember before Trump became president, his candidacy was quite controversial, and a lot of people felt, rightly it turns out, that he wasn't a very good guardian of conservative principles. But anyway, so when Phyllis passed away, there was a big fight over who was going to lead the Eagle Forum. And, I don't remember exactly how it turned out, but I know Ed Martin, who is now, he was for a time the acting attorney general in Trump's second term, but I think he's like the leader of the weaponization division at the Department of Justice. But the organization he was reportedly legal, it was no longer called Eagle Forum. It was called Phyllis Schlafly Eagles. I wonder if there was some kind of schism there, if that was like a breakaway organization or what. But anyway, thank God it's Erica Kirk, who, if you haven't seen, well, there's two things. One was the eulogy she gave at the Turning Point event yesterday, and then before that was the statement she gave maybe about a week ago. Both absolutely essential. Every American needs to watch them. But if anybody understands what Charlie Kirk's vision was and will honor it moving forward, it'll be Erica Kirk. Thank God it won't be Ben Shapiro. I don't know if you saw the disgusting comment he made. And I'll pick up that bloody microphone. Pick up that bloody microphone and carry on, brother. Whatever it was he said. Disgusting. D asks, where do you see this going? The reason for his killing, the bigger picture. Well, that's a big question. I'm going to probably get to that throughout the show. But the reason for the killing was because the guy was a brainwashed, radicalized left-wing terrorist. And if there was any conspiracy involved, the conspiracy was the guy trying to absolve his boyfriend, his tranny furry boyfriend, and maybe some other organizers on Discord or wherever else they were doing it. In fact, here I'll show you. We put this on the screen here. This is an actual. Let me see if I make this bigger here. I'm having trouble making this thing bigger. Maybe let me try doing this. Now can I zoom in? Yeah, okay, there we go. So this is a transcript of this text thread, or maybe it was on Discord, or I don't know. Robinson being the murderer and roommate being his homosexual transgender furry lover. And yeah, the comments are just seems a little bit unnatural, maybe. Rob, the murderer, says, "I'm still okay, my love, but I'm stuck in Orem for a little while longer yet. Shouldn't be long until I can come home, but I got to grab my rifle still. To be honest, I'd hoped to keep the secret till I died of old age. I am sorry to involve you." And of course, and this goes on, and you can see some of these underlined comments. They're either very clumsily worded, strangely worded, unnaturally worded for a Zoomer, or they're in kind of like cop speak. You can see these terms: squad car, swept that spot. And somewhere here, there's a weird word. He uses the word vehicle instead of car. Yeah, here we go. It's quiet, almost enough to get out, but there's one vehicle lingering. People don't talk like that. And I think the most likely explanation for this is that this was rehearsed dialogue, so that in the event that the guy got caught, because he obviously, he didn't just like do this all by himself, not say a word to anybody. Of course, he was talking to his lover about this. So this is his way of, in case something happens, I will, I'm going to take all the blame. That's what this is all about. Didn't want any of his his co-plotters to get implicated. David Seller says, radical left. Why do you say that? He was killed by a lone gunman from a MAGA family. David, you're a disgusting, retarded pile of shit. And you obviously have no clue what any of the facts of the case were. And also you're done here. Goodbye. And by the way, so the bad news I was going to mention earlier is that it's been announced Jimmy Kimmel will be back on the air. And I hope the boycotts are absolutely ferocious. I hope the FCC pulls the privilege that ABC has to be on broadcaster. We'll talk more about this free speech stuff in a minute. But every single person who perpetuates the lies about Charlie Kirk and the lies about his assassins is culpable. D says, I don't believe the 22-year-old was the gunman, not by the mainstream FBI story. Hogwash. It's all on film, D. There was like thousands of people there. They heard the shot. They saw where it came from. There's security camera video. I don't know why people will believe things for which there is zero evidence. No evidence. I mean, this is, and again, I'm not going to do an unsolved mysteries episode here. We go through the evidence piece by piece. There's been plenty of people on the internet doing that for the past week and a half. But all of the explanations that people have for why this doesn't make sense don't make sense themselves. How they're going to get on the roof? Because it's not hard to get onto a roof. When there's, campus security is not that great. It's just not. 150 yards is not a long distance for a shot, not for a trained shooter. And the guy was. He came from a conservative family and was radicalized in college and on the internet, as all of his friends testified to, and his family testified to. He etched Antifa statements on the bullet casings, for crying out loud. Or cartridge casings, I guess you call them, not bullet casings. You know what I'm talking about. The brass. That is a left-wing MAGA thing. Anyway. A lot of people speaking because Charlie can't speak for himself anymore. Here's Nick Fuentes, another guy that wants to claim Charlie Kirk's legacy.
That's not right. And that hypocrisy needs to be called out. And it's just not good enough what we're getting. Charlie Kirk and your focus group, fuck you.
Yeah, that's Nick Fuentes. It's the guy that wants to tell us how to honor Charlie Kirk's memory. Hey, Barry, good to see you, man. Yeah, D, thank you for saying that. Look, I get it. Like, the Israeli government murders people it doesn't like. The Ukrainian government murders people it doesn't like. That doesn't mean that's what happened here. And there's no evidence for it. And frankly, the hatred that the radical left has for Charlie Kirk burns a whole lot hotter than the hatred that Ukraine has for one American who's probably not even really that much on their radar. They were claiming he was on the Ukrainian kill list, which there is such a thing, by the way, the Miratovitz list. He wasn't on it, at least as far as I can tell. It's been claimed he was. By the way, why is the Miratovitz list allowed to exist? Those who don't know, I'll put this up so in case you haven't seen this. There is an actual list from the Miratovitz Center of people the government of Ukraine wants dead, including Americans that are on this list. Based in, if you can tell in the top right corner of the screen, Langley, Virginia, USA, and Warsaw, Poland. What's in Langley, Virginia? Everyone knows it's in Langley. There's only one thing in Langley, Virginia. The CIA is in Langley, Virginia. But anyway. Yeah, it's true Charlie Kirk was not a fan of the Ukraine war. And it may be true that his opinion was evolving on Israel to the point that he was not supportive of what Israel was doing in Gaza. That's not the same as that does not rise to the level of they had to murder Charlie Kirk. Who did view Charlie Kirk as an existential threat? The radical American left and their mob of terrorists who just this past couple of weeks have killed like 3 people. It's not even just Charlie. The fake non-apologies have been crazy. There was one, I don't have the clip handy, but there's this one website, Jezebel, which is a left-wing website that had posted a thing of a few, like literally a couple of weeks before Charlie was murdered, saying that they had paid a coven of witches to put a hex on Charlie Kirk, and then they took the article down after he was murdered. And they gave this disgusting non-apology saying, our lawyers told us not to post this, so we took it down. And then there's this. This is Michigan State Representative Mai Chong from Warren.
Hey guys, it's the weekend, so I'm not at work, but being a nya, I'm always ready for any battle against Republicans. What's a nya, you say? It's being a good, loyal daughter-in-law and wife that Republicans pretend to want but have no respect for. A woman who knows how to cook, clean, and take care of herself and her babies all at the same time, always looking flawless because you never know who's going to knock on the door or show up unannounced like that annoying uncle who can't stop talking about Trump. I'm making Hmong chicken soup. I have to sharpen my sword first. A week of debating them on the floor, I'm so relieved to finally be able to take my stress out on the chopping block. I pull out the insides and toss.
So there she is talking about how wonderful it is to butcher a chicken after having a tough time debating Republicans. By the way, you might wonder what exactly is a Hmong. Here's some stories from you about the Hmong people, courtesy of Ann Coulter in the book Adios America. There's a bit of a rape culture among the Hmong people. So, for example, there was this big case in Fresno where 23 Hmong members were indicted in a rape case. Only 2 newspapers covered the story. The problem is, in Hmong culture, no means yes. So, in this case, a 23-year-old Hmong man kidnapped a co-ed from her dorm room, took her to his parents' house, and raped her. Oozing with cultural understanding, the New York Times noted that this is how the Hmong proposed marriage. According to a lawyer quoted by the Times, the American witnesses to the girl's abduction had simply misunderstood her ritual protest and called the police. Apparently, the rape victim didn't understand either, and she filed rape charges. So the New York Times article about the rape was titled "Asian Tradition at War with American Laws." And a few years after that, in 1988, a Hmong immigrant kidnapped a young Laotian woman from a Fresno office and forcibly raped her. The American judge sentenced the rapist only 120 days in jail after his lawyer said that in Hmong culture, if a woman doesn't fight her rapist with sufficient ferocity, the rapist and the victim are considered married. And this goes on for like pages and pages and pages. Adios, America, folks. Read the book. Anyway, so this Hmong immigrant came to the United States where she could evade that rape culture. And this is how she celebrates the murder of those she disagrees with politically. Disgusting, disgusting people, all of them. But I have to say, as much as the totality of the evil of the American left, I guess I should say mildly surprises me. I'm not completely blown away by it, but I am a bit surprised. But the side I've been even more disappointed with and saddened by has been the anti-war, the libertarian, left-leaning libertarian types who absolutely could not find it in themselves to put aside their hatred of Charlie Kirk for even a moment. And I'm not just talking about like the anti-war left types. I'm talking about like Daniel McAdams, like who works with Ron Paul at the Ron Paul Institute, and who also, by the way, with that completely recklessly even after the suspect was apprehended, continues to insinuate that again Israel might have killed Charlie Kirk, but also his views were disgusting and evil and blah blah blah. Just reprehensible. Or Glenn Greenwald, who compared the this incident to the censorship of Parler on January, over the January 6th protests. Like, this is comparable to anything like that. Yeah, there have been a lot of bad takes, and there is, by the way, one that I have to address. I have to. I guess I don't really literally have to, but I should. But because I did post this. This was I actually was thinking about coming out with a statement about this, and I'm glad I didn't, because this happened. This was posted at 3:10 p.m. on September 10th, 2.9 million views, 7.3 thousand shares. And that is from this Twitter account, Mostly Peaceful Memes. It says the Michigan State Legislature is currently praying for Charlie Kirk, who was just shot. Here are two Democrats, Joey Anders and Emily Devendorf, who couldn't be bothered to stand. In fact, they were snickering. Which, if true, would be obscene. And them being stripped of their committee assignments would be richly deserved. However, I did look into this claim. There is no evidence on the video of this, and I did watch the video of this thing as it happened. No evidence that they snickered. Also, lots of members on both sides weren't standing. It was kind of an impromptu. They're in the middle of legislative business. Hey, Mr. Speaker, I just heard this thing happen. Can we have a moment of silence? Yeah, sure. And they say a quick prayer. And when the camera pans out, as soon as the prayer is over, because when the person giving the prayer, Representative Slaw was speaking, the camera's on him. But then as soon as the prayer is over, they pan out. You see the whole floor, and people are sitting on both sides. And I asked a bunch of lawmakers, including, you can see there's Tim Kelly right there. Not a single lawmaker confirmed the story, which means it's most likely just totally made up for clicks. This Mostly Peaceful Memes account literally created a hoax based off of Charlie Kirk for clicks and money, as far as I can tell. Although I wonder where this photo came from, because it was taken from a lawmaker's desk, it appears. I wonder whose. Wonder who was maybe talking to him. But anyway, I accidentally retweeted this because I took it at face value, and I, in the heat of the moment, didn't do my homework. So, oops. But anyway. So, where do we go with all this stuff, folks? Well, there's a couple of questions. First is the public policy question. What should, for example, the Trump administration do? What should Republican policymakers do? And of course, then there's the question of what we all should do. And I think without any question, the first and foremost thing for all of us is that this needs to be a clarifying moment, that we are at war with evil, and we must never stop speaking out against it and fighting against it. And, and that also means doing everything we can to fight smartly. And we're not going to always agree on what to do in that respect. In fact, Matt Walsh, who has been a valuable voice in this in a lot of ways. But one of the things he said was, one of the things he says was, we need to take this moment and unify. We should all conservatives need to unify against, against the left. We have to put aside our differences. In fact, he gave an example. He forgave Nancy Mace, one of the drama queens in the Republican caucus in Congress. And well, here's the thing. There's a lot of people in the Republican side who have taken this absolutely the wrong way. Like these insufferable people like James Langford, sitting U.S. Senator from Oklahoma. There's violence on both sides. Why would you want to unify with people that don't have any conservative principles? That's, if anything, this whole incident, I think, has done good things for the Republicans politically. That should expand our ability to be selective about which politicians we do and don't support. Because as I've said a million times, if we just blindly follow every Republican politician as they betray us and stab us in the back and take the money from the lobbyists and sell us out, then what's the point of any of this? But then the other question too is like where this goes in terms of policies. And I think it is possible to go over the line, and God knows Trump probably will. But there's, first of all, nothing wrong with declaring Antifa a terrorist organization, an international terrorist organization. They are an international terrorist organization. They are funded by George Soros. They were founded in a foreign country, Italy. They came to Germany and then to the United States. There's actually a really good article about this, if I can find it. I might have to dig us up. But there's a really good paper. I'll try to find it and put a link in the description about how George Soros has funded the tune of $250 million. I think it was about that much. Certainly tens of millions. Terrorist organizations. And they have networks that do these things, that provide legal assistance for Antifa terrorists, that bail them out of jail, that recruit and train lawyers and get them appointed by Democrats in positions of power. And to anyone who says, "Oh, we can't embrace cancel culture," because that'd be hypocritical. I think there's been a clarifying moment here. I mean, first off, they don't play by the rules ever. Why do we play by rules that they don't play by? And normally the answer would be, well, because you have to have certain principles. Yeah, the principle is the government shouldn't censor your speech. There's nothing wrong with organizing a boycott against ABC for putting Jimmy Kimmel on the air. There's nothing wrong with targeting their advertisers, because they're condoning more than just murder, political terrorism and assassinations. And this brainwashed radical leftist kid was not the root of the problem. He was radicalized by an organized, paid, funded effort to demonize Charlie Kirk and do it in a systematic way. And the right in general, obviously. And the number one target was Trump, but they couldn't get Trump, so they got this guy. And Trump, for all his faults, you know, that disgusting video, but there's another person whose ideas are terrible, is Anna Paulina Luna, the one in Congress who got the Charlie Kirk assassination video pulled off the air. I don't know if you guys saw that video. The first time I saw it, I'd heard about it and heard how shocking it was. And the first one I saw, it was from a very far away distance and it didn't seem all that awful. And then I saw the one that was like from a lot closer up, and it really is horrifying. It really is horrifying. But if you can stand it, it's good to have seen it. I mean, and that's obviously not to revel in this, but you know, I make myself watch, and I've seen many videos of people killed in war that our country funds, and some of them are extremely graphic. And I don't watch it to enjoy it. I watch it because you need to understand how horrific it is and what your tax dollars are being spent on. And that horrible video was what the left was hoping they had gotten to see after Butler, Pennsylvania. And they didn't get it. But they would have been cheering and dancing in the streets if they'd gotten that. And it's a reminder for all of us of how truly, profoundly sick these people are. I was going to say evil, but sick is maybe a better word because they've been infected by this illness. And Charlie would have wanted them. Well, it's like Erica said, and she said she forgave his killer because that's the kind of person Charlie was. You want to save every person you can. And I think that's right. But at the same time, also, people have to be punished for evil acts. And we can't look the other way anymore when people do these things. When U of M dishonors Charlie Kirk and celebrates his murder by refusing to put the flag at half staff, there has to be political penalties for them. And when Republicans, I don't have none of them are from Michigan, but the 4 Republicans in Congress who voted against stripping Ilhan Omar for committee assignments after she came up and slandered and libeled Charlie Kirk. And again, Matt Walsh, why would you vote for those Republicans? Fuck them. They're not our friends. They're our enemies. I don't want to unify with them. I want them gone. Yeah, I one thing any Republican in power has with the ability to do needs to be doing is naming things for Charlie Kirk. There should be a USS Charlie Kirk aircraft carrier by now. Charlie Kirk is a martyr. And it's shocking, you know, when RFK was assassinated, nobody in America cheered for him, no matter how controversial his opinions were. Nobody cheered Martin Luther King's assassination. People that disagree with him were hugely embarrassed by it. They were ashamed of it. It led to, at least for a long time, till the left destroyed it, the implementation of Dr. King's vision. And it would only be many decades later when the left would reinvent what Martin Luther King stood for. He stood for equality. And the left realized they didn't like that, so they switched it to equity. But for a very long time, Martin Luther King's vision stood. And in fact, maybe that's a good point to end on. Let's see if I can find this article. I'm going to pull this up. This is an article I've occasionally. Yeah, here we go. This is a. I did find it. Let me pull it up. This is an article by a radical leftist, which may seem like a strange thing to quote at this time, but he makes a point about MLK, which. Well, I'll just read. I'll read the main part. This is. He's arguing with his father about how Martin Luther King was not as cool as Malcolm X was, because because Malcolm X was more radical and all that. And so he makes this point that Dr. King ended the terror of living in the South, and that the way he did this, in contrast to Malcolm X or anybody else, was that this is not where the full article is. It was over here. Which is that what MLK taught people to do was to do what they make you most afraid of. And yeah, and in those days, there was an element of fear in doing those things. Go ahead down to City Hall and try to register to vote, even if they say no, even if they take your name down. To the local school board, sit at the lunch counter. Things that black people at that time would have said, without exaggeration, were insane and would get you killed. And you know what? The worst of the worst they did to us wasn't even that bad. And that was what ended the terrorism in the South. It wasn't the I have a dream speech. It was teaching people to put aside their fear and do exactly what they try to terrorize you out of doing. Wear that Trump hat in Ann Arbor. Put the sticker on your car. The I am Charlie Kirk sticker. Wear the I am Charlie Kirk shirt. And by the way, for any Democrats or any leftists who might stumble upon this show, how dare you compare white conservatives in America today to black people in the civil rights era? Yeah, because we are the oppressed minority now. That's what electing Trump was all about, was resisting and rejecting that fear, that terrorism, which they did impose on us, by the way. That was what January 6th was, and much more. Going after Doug Mackey for posting a political cartoon. Yeah, protest at the Capitol. That's your right. All the things that the left wants us to be afraid to do, like speaking on campus, there's a time now to do it. And to hold these folks accountable at the polls, organizing people and mobilizing people. And yeah, the threats in America are real. We might have the upper hand right now just because Trump's in the White House. That was no sure thing. In fact, if Trump hadn't turned his head that day, God knows where we would be today. Who knows? Those January 6th protesters would still be in jail. So, anyway, I'm not sure where to close on this. I've heard a lot of people doing a lot of talking this past week and a half. The best of it was Erica Kirk's speech at the memorial yesterday, and also her statement before that. Other than that, and Tucker's been very good and very careful, unlike some people. But the takeaway lesson, I think, in all this is that we are in a fight for our lives, and Charlie called it a spiritual battle, and it is. And it is. And it's a fight we must make. And I've heard that they're up to something like 30,000. Maybe I may have heard even now 60,000 people applying to start Turning Point chapters on their campuses or in their high schools. Hope that's true. I don't know. Unfortunately, we like to think that when a leader is killed, that there's a positive side to things. That like I remember. Well, I'll just say this: Charlie Kirk was Turning Point USA, and Erica Kirk might live up to him. But the fact that he's gone does not mean that the future will be brighter without him. It won't be. There'll be motivation. There'll be more people mobilizing and motivated right now. Will that stick? Who knows? We should make it stick as best we can. But like I said, I don't know how internally Turning Point USA works, and I don't know that it won't be subverted by the Israel lobby and the Trump administration or anything else. And the fact is, whatever Charlie Kirk might have said, he can't say it anymore. So all I can do is be the best Americans we can be. And again, to be fearless and to find joy in battle. And there will be many more battles to come. So anyway, I still owe you guys a stream, so maybe talk about current events again later this week. We'll see. Need to be doing more speaking, that's for sure. So thank you guys for tuning in. I wish I had more of an organization in my words about all this stuff. I've got literally pages and pages of notes and things that I wrote down a week and a half ago. But one thing, I think it was Matt Walsh who said this: the murder of Charlie Kirk happened because evil is unaccountable, and it's time they be held accountable. We should be demanding the death penalty for this assassin and for any of his co-conspirators. And by the way, we should be demanding accountability from Trump's administration too. So far, Kash Patel's been completely worthless, as has Pam Bondi. Maybe there's some things going on behind the scenes that might take a lot of work to get through, but if there's no major indictments by the end of this year from Pam Bondi, Trump needs to fire her. And yeah, I mean, same thing with, there needs to be a crackdown on Antifa. There needs to be a crackdown on really all of these out of control leftist politicians. Not to the point where you're infringing on their free speech, but there is plenty of room to do a whole lot of things. Ilhan Omar should be denaturalized and deported. It's absolutely insane that we have. You guys see that video? I think it's on my X feed of the white mayor of Minneapolis giving a speech in Somalian. Completely flippin' insane. And yeah. All right, guys. I'm not getting any better as I'm rambling on here. So we're gonna call it a stream, I think, now. And maybe I'll be more refreshed next time. D says thanks for the talk. Also says free speech, not free bullets. I don't know what that means, D. All right, guys, we'll call it stream. We'll call it there. Until next time, thanks for all you guys do for liberty, and I hope you do a lot for liberty. We got a long way to go. So until then, peace.